Hello, and welcome back to Scotty Full Stack. Decided to try something new. As I had mentioned on Sunday, when I was doing my ruck and my initial live stream, I'm going to start trying to do more and more live streams as time goes on. I think that it's a good way to connect with you all more than just a recording. I know a lot of people also don't join the Slack channel, or now in this case the Discord. So I think it's a good thing to do live streams. I think it's a good thing to try to connect. And if you'd like to chat with me, I have the chat open as well, and we can discuss anything that you may feel like you want to drop in there, as long as time permits and doesn't go against the agenda that we have for today. So for today, a couple things I wanted to cover was first the website and some things I've been working on there. And then, of course, the move to Discord and how we're going to handle that. And then the primary discussion point is the Terraform Associate Exam that I took on Monday. So I got the score results, and we'll go through that, and then maybe do a little bit of hands-on work to better understand, how we can do better, at least either on the exam or in our professional setting. So what we'll go ahead and kick off and start with the website. So for those of you who don't know how I built this site, I did this site in Django. This was pre-ChatGPT as well. So if you would actually look at my code, it's pretty clunky and probably not optimized, because I am not a Django developer. I really enjoyed working with Django and getting to know Python a little bit better, and all of the cool features that you can do with that. If you were also unaware, I started my career in UX design work. So a little bit of like the HTML, CSS stuff I was pretty familiar with, and I was able to kind of fly through that element of this. But this is my site built hands-on. I tried WordPress, I think, what was the other one? Square, I think. Did not like it. And so I just built this how I wanted to, kind of made it a fun project, and really actually thoroughly enjoyed spending free time on this outside of work. So here, sign up, I've reverted back to the language I did have. I am moving into the AI space with DevOps specifically, and I may add some more around that, but for right now I've gone back to kind of where I started with this, which is build your portfolio, because that's, I think, what the core of this is going to be. As I mentioned on Sunday, I do believe that we are moving in a direction where AI is going to be a factor in your career. And I've always wanted this site and this channel to be about how to prepare yourself for a professional environment and to be competitive. So with this, as I've, the trajectory of which I've taken this entire site and channel is to give you hands-on experience and maybe walk you through some of the pitfalls that I've been through as well. So thanks for joining me, and go ahead and just kick off walking through. So here, if you come to the site and you were to sign up, you're going to get an email. And I think some of you have signed up in the past year and did not receive an email, and I'll probably kick one out to all of those emails as well. MailChimp did something weird in between my hiatus here of my last video to now. And so when I went back and looked, the automation was not on, and I actually had to upgrade in order to get the automations to work again. So with that, I will fix those people. But if you're interested in getting the Discord and getting updates from me through email, which I don't have many. I don't email often. Actually, like you get like one right now. And then if I have anything to update you on, I will do that via that email automation. So you can get your invite, gives you the Discord link. You can join up there. Again, still working on my Discord, trying to understand that, moving from Slack to Discord. Yeah, so if you click this, it goes right back to the form. Fill out the form, and then you go. If you have not subscribed to the channel, do so, because that's how I get momentum on this site, and that's how I get momentum in building the tutorials and certainly getting to know and connect with the rest of the community. So do that. Go to the About. What I'm going to be doing here is I've already updated it quite a bit, but I'm going to start. I'm on a certification high right now, so I'm going to be pushing for more certifications, particularly around the AI space and AWS, and then seeing where that goes. I kind of want to go for the data science. That one might take me a significant amount more time than I had expected, but we're going to try. We're going to see where we can get with it. So if you are interested in tracking that progress, as I get them, I'm going to be putting them here. I've had some that expired, so I'm not going to include those. So right now it's just the 2 that I have active, and I will be updating this regularly to showcase that. And then finally, as I'm sure many of you have seen, the blog. These are the tutorials, and you can go back and check those out and anytime you want. And those, I think, are still, a lot of them are still relevant. Not much has changed on the technology, so check that out. And yeah, one of my personal ones, I have not added a blog for it, but if you check on the YouTube, it's the GitHub Actions one. That one I did put a significant amount of time into for the preparation of that, to make sure that that technology is taught as well as possible. So if you're interested, go check that one out. I think that is a big one going forward, especially for this channel. I think I'm going to be using GitHub Actions quite a bit, and be a helpful video for you and my audience. So with that, let's jump over to the HashiCorp review that I got for my exam. I took the exam on Monday, now Wednesday, and I got this about 24 hours later after I took the exam. So I found it kind of interesting. It's not crazy helpful. So as I noted in the description of this video and on the community page, this, like, I'm not going to disclose any exam answers, questions, information around that. I do believe that I'm allowed to share this. I don't think there's anything in the NDA specifically talking about how I can share my results, but I just wanted to kind of walk through what these were and what they meant. So as you can see here, it's broken up into kind of 8 segments, and it told me where I need review, which are, interestingly enough, Terraform fundamentals, which confused me and surprised me, but I'll show you why in a few minutes. The Terraform configuration, Terraform modules, and then of course HCP Terraform. So that one I kind of knew that I was going to struggle on, because I just don't have the hands-on experience with HCP Terraform, and I also didn't really prepare for it at all. So didn't surprise me, but also I don't think it was super complex. We'll probably get to that in a later video. But for now and for today's live stream, what I wanted to cover is kind of the first one that I did wrong, or not wrong, but needed review, was the Terraform fundamentals. So like, if you look at that and you're just kind of wondering, like, what does Terraform fundamentals even mean? We can look at that. So here, this is the public, mind you, the public Terraform content list. You can access this just by Googling it, and you can see what is covered on the examination. So for me, in my case, what I'm going to cover right now is this item 2, Terraform fundamentals. Kind of lists out here, below that, 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D, what is covered in that segment for my own review. So starting with install and version Terraform providers. Now, I don't specifically know, nor can I really remember even what those exam questions look like around providers, but I'll say this, like, I think there's a lot of nuance on the exam within the formatting and the syntax, and then even like some flags in some cases, which I can show you from their documentation what they're talking about there. So if you're new to Terraform, or maybe you just, you're coming back to it, maybe you want to know more specifically around like studying, click on like each new window or new tab. So so we have kind of like this initial page. What is Terraform? Let me click. I clicked on it. Do both. But first of all, I think this is actually good. What is Terraform? How does Terraform work? So here, I'm not gonna like read through all this documentation, but I think like this is a really good start from when we're talking about the fundamentals and the providers. You have Terraform core, which then interacts with the Terraform provider, which then interacts with the target API. So what we're talking about here in the fundamental section, the provider. So Terraform core, Terraform provider, target API. What does that mean? Go to the providers page on that other link that we clicked. We can look down for presentation, but we can look at like what provider is and what does it do. So these are plugins, and when we say plugin, we're talking about like an installed binary called a provider that interacts with the cloud providers. So for instance, I've been heavy on AWS lately. So you have an AWS provider, which is a binary, which I'll dig into this in just a moment in the actual workflow. But you have the provider, and you that is what Terraform calls to be able to interact with the cloud provider's actual API. So whenever you're using Terraform, we're writing our infrastructure as code, right? So it's maintained, it's human readable, and it's in a repository, and then we can version control that. We have our infrastructure as code that when we run the Terraform plan apply, it calls that provider, which is again a binary plugin, that then executes against the actual providers, the cloud provider's API. So AWS in this case, right? It'll check EC2, the RDS. And so it kind of makes it much easier, as you can imagine, on us, where we're not having to call all of the backend APIs of a cloud provider. We're using Terraform and a written provider for Terraform that does all of that for us. And it makes it significantly easier. So with that, let's we'll keep bouncing around in the documentation. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my VS Code, and here within VS Code we can make a few files. So I'm going to make, of course, the TF file. We're going to make one called providers TF, and if I'm correct. Nope. You know what? Let's actually read. Okay, so I think it's best practice or better practice, and then let's add another file for our inputs, and then I like not really something we should dive into when we're talking about like the fundamentals, but we'll go ahead and do it anyway. Let's do some variables just in case, and then our ours for the values. Cool. Okay, so we have those files to start with at least. Now within the versions, this is where I think it's important that you keep an eye on syntax, and then very specifically what is being said in the file. So when it came to the exam, I know that there were questions around this, and you'd think it's pretty straightforward, especially whenever you're like if you were like me, where years ago I was working with Terraform a lot more, like seven years ago ish. if there's already infrastructure like written and things are written already, and you're not dealing with it every single day, there are some things that are kind of gotchas that maybe you just like were thinking about it differently, or you were assuming that it went within a specific part of the block. So just, I'd say pay attention to like that. How we're going to start off the versions file is with the Terraform block. Inside of the Terraform block, this is where you would put in your required version for Terraform. So here it's going to be required version, not version, required version. And let's go back and just see, for instance, what version. Reviewing documentation. Go to the 1.14.x, right? For this, what you could put is obviously you can put in a specific version. Not recommended in all cases. I mean, I think the best practice would be to put in a range or an increasing like approximation of. So to do that, you do a tilde and then a caret bracket, and then you would put in your, like in this case, we could do 114 or 12. I don't think it really matters in this case because obviously I'm not going to be using 114, but and if I don't put the 0 there, what this is going to do is this is going to allow every, like it's going to install the latest non-breaking version in Terraform. So 1.12, right? So right now we're at 14, I think I saw in the documentation. So this will probably install, I think, 1.140, but we'll see what it says when we install it. But you're gonna want your required versions here to be that. Now, under that, and you can see, so my extension is very helpful here, obviously. Required providers is the next block here. So required providers goes within the Terraform, and it's under the required version. So in this case, obviously my extension, I think it knows I've been working with AWS recently, but right now it just auto-filled. AWS gives me the source, which in this case is the official HashiCorp, and then the AWS provider, which again is maintained and operated by HashiCorp. So you can trust this provider for the most part from a perspective of bugs, malware, anything. You don't necessarily have to worry about it. Version, in this case, I mean, the autofill was 4.0. What we can do is just come back. Here, AWS provider. This is the AWS provider documentation in Terraform. What we can look at is, so here, 6.3.4. So when I come back right now, it's like saying 4 up. I'd be interested to see. I think what this would do is any minor version with 4, it would increase. I don't think that this would go to 5 or 6. Of course, we'll see. Well, why don't we just put in like 6.0 here and see what it installs from that perspective. And then like here you can add any other providers that you want, and it doesn't have to be HashiCorp specific. You can, or managed. You can add a GitHub provider, and you can see here I guess my extension's pretty awesome, right? The sources, the integrations, GitHub, and then version, and of course we can find that version. For now, I think it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to keep 4.0 up. Non-breaking. So I'll save that. And then we can go ahead and Terraform it. And yeah, so we are here. You can see, so the GitHub was 4.31, which I'm not sure if that's up to date or not, but that's just what it is from what my extension put in. And then we also have the AWS 6.34, which is what we just saw right in the provider. So back 6.34 is the most recent. If AWS the provider gets updated to like a major version, so it goes from 6 to 7, then you can trust that this is not going to break. Which, I mean, you can have a breaking change in a minor version. It's unlikely though. So if this goes to 7, you could very well have a break, and you need to be aware of that. So whenever you're putting this into production or any environment where you're needing to rely on this consistently and not break it, you want to make sure that you at least have like the tilde bracket. If you're not going to define a very specific range, this way this will not go above 6. It's going to stay at 6, but it's going to give you all of those minor versions in between. Something to note, something to keep track of. I think that is critical. So back to the kind of like the Terraform fundamentals. Let's do. So if we go, when we did the Terraform init, as I'm sure many of you know, it generates the .terraform hidden folder. Within that .terraform hidden folder, we have this HashiCorp and this integrations. Let's go to HashiCorp. And then here we have official AWS provider. So, and this is that binary I was talking about. Within integrations, this should be the GitHub. Yep, because that's that GitHub one is not HashiCorp specific. So we have both of our providers within that folder, and that's what it's going to be calling. Terraform is going to be calling the core. Terraform is going to be calling those whenever it creates our infrastructure that calls against the backend, and then that makes it easier on us again, so that we don't have to do that ourselves. So there's that. Then also generated the lock file, and this is kind of what goes back into that kind of team planning, that team effort, and this file is pretty much what prevents you from ever saying again, oh, it worked on my local. It worked for me when I applied it from my local, right? So this lock file is generated. It's got the versions in it, and this should be committed into source and maintained, so that you can ensure that you're not going to break anything, or that it can work reliably whenever you expect it to. Essentially, consistency across the board. Okay, so moving on, let's see what these providers do a little more in depth. From here, this is our main.tf file, right? AWS, our region, and let's see if it populates. It is. Okay, so it's wanting to populate to var.aws, that variable. Let's go ahead and just add that now. So AWS underscore region. Oh, wait, this is variable AWS underscore region. Then we can do default equals s. Then description. Look at that, auto-populating. Okay, so we have a default value that I'm entering, which is just US East 1. And then, of course, you can change that out if you'd like, depending on what variables you pass as the input. But for now, I'm kind of happy with that. In the TFRs, just if you just wanted to be facetious about it, I know we have the default set, but if you just want to see where that gets put, you do AWS region equals US East 1. And as you change that and pass that through, that'll update however you need. So going back to the main.tf, now that is populated. And then what we can do is maybe just create a single resource. So base resource. And if you weren't familiar with this, for EC2, it's AWS underscore instance. The name we can just see. The AMI, for this video, I'm not going to do a filter, like a data. I think we'll just hard code this in. You just go back so you can just kind of see. I know we've done this on this channel in the past, kind of getting back into it. Let's go ahead and talk about it. If I come here, let's go back to dashboard, launch instance. Amazon Linux is fine. And we'll just grab this AMI. And this is for, again, like these AMIs change based on what region you're in. So if like you're in a different region somewhere on the other side of the planet, like, it's going to be a different ID. So you can find that yourself. Otherwise, in a future video, I'll be going more into like the data source and the filtering. But again, for now, for what we're doing, that is probably what we can do. Now, keep in mind, and you should play around with this, you can variabilize these. Like, so you can make variables for everything here, and you can pass them to your configuration when you run it. So, or you can use even environment variables. So those are things to keep in mind as you are growing in this yourself, is to do that. And okay, cool. So we have that, and then of course we can add our, which you may not always want to do. You might have separate files for this, but we can add our GitHub resource to this. Oh, I think it's repository. Yep. Full. Love to auto-populate. There we go. Private false. I don't know if that's still correct. Depreciated. So whatever this extension did, that is new. I need to go back and look at GitHub here. Repository. I'm here. And let's see. Visibility. So why don't we do that? Visibility is public. Name. Let's do or whatever I'm doing, right? That's fine. Now I have my GitHub key in an environment variable, which I'm not gonna like show off right now. I mean, probably gonna delete it afterwards anyway, but just letting you know that's how I'm authenticating. And if you wanted to understand that better for yourself, right? If we just come back to GitHub, I guess this would actual. Want to see like more of their documentation. If I scroll down, here, like authentication, right? So you could put it in your provider block with token equals var.token. Or you can put it in an environment variable. Right here, GitHub token. And that will authenticate whenever you call this, which you'll see here momentarily. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and so we have the name of our repository, which again you can change depending on you put that in a variable, or like especially if this is like an automated, like let's just say you're running this Terraform block and you have maybe you're naming your GitHub repo like the name of a EC2 instance. There's probably quite a few applications for that. But you can make that a variable as well, where it could change depending on a criteria. And let's just go ahead and like try. I don't think there's anything else I want to add here. Maybe like an out, just to show like that as well, because outputs are on the output. I'll just call it like or what am I do the repository? So GitHub. Something like that. Value, and look at that. Pretty cool. So it's calling example and then the name, and that will output when we run our Terraform code. So let's try it. Let's first do a Terraform. And it generated our state. We'll go through here momentarily. So it generated the state file. And you can see here we have 2 to add, which would be the GitHub, and then also the EC2 in US East. So let's go ahead and try it. Terraform, apply, auto approve. Let's watch the magic happen. All right, so you can see it's creating. Hopefully we won't get any issues with GitHub. Yeah, it's already complete. So let's just jump over there while we're waiting on the EC2. Come over to my GitHub, right? Let me refresh. And there we go, live stream repo. Created from that. Now if I go back, let's go back and check on the Terraform, right? So 2 added, and here's our output. So it gave me the name of our repo. So again, you know, depending on where you're at in your Terraform journey, this is kind of, I would say this is elementary. But I think that it's really important to kind of remember specifically things like the versions and providers, and understanding what providers are and what they do and how they're managed. So whether it be HashiCorp specific, or if it be managed third party, like the GitHub repo, and it comes through as an integration. Those are, you know, okay, back. Let's see. What are we doing? I'm like halfway through the stream essentially. Let's take a look. So we looked at the lock file. We looked at the plugins that show up in the .terraform. In this case, AWS is in the HashiCorp directory, the hidden file, and then the integrations, you have the GitHub provider there. So just remember that's where the binaries, those providers go. They are located in that area. Now, when you have, so when you have multiple providers, right, like they're going to pop up here in different different directories. Just take a note of that. Again, that's on the exam. So as trivial as it may sound, remembering the locations of things, what's generated whenever you do a Terraform apply, state populating, right? You can see our state right now as is like the EC2's here, and the GitHub repository is down here as well. Managed repository. Yeah, I think those are the main things. Let's go back to the actual like exam document. Providers, specifying provider requirements, which we talked about. The dependency lock file, which if you want to look more into this, you can come check this out. The lock file location, which we talked about, that shows you where your dependencies are locked. Something that's, again, good to know. Now, this is another one of those exam things that I found kind of interesting. You have the flag dash upgrade. So this is something that I wasn't like really fully aware of because I'd never had to really worry about using it in my particular use case. Understanding those flags, I think, is really beneficial. And in this case, the dash upgrade. So whenever you change a provider, you can run that in your command line, and it will auto pull the provider and also upgrade it depending on what is specifically within that log file, or if you need to change. So something to note there. Dash upgrade is a flag that is possible to run with when you run Terraform init. So that's another note. Dash upgrade goes with Terraform init. Cool. So aliases, another thing that's kind of like for being where even was it? I accidentally. Okay. Well, you know what? Those might pop up later in the documentation. I think what we can do is we can look at that. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I already kind of showed you this in the file, right? The provider block reference. Oh, well, okay, alias is here. Let's look at it. So provider name. So in our case, right, and what we're currently looking at is the AWS provider arguments. So you have the version and you have the alias. And we could have multiple like regions or multiple. I test it versions of those providers. So if we go back, here that's required. Just try here, right? Provider AWS alias equals. This is actually bad practice here because I have it in variable. So that wouldn't be that, but just note. So like if I had like if I had it kind of laid out differently, did like hard coded this in, right? One. And then I had like I could instead of you, which I don't know why you would do it this way. It's kind of like the way that it was set up. Why you would do this? You could have different variables like one for west, one for east, one for whatever, right? Whatever you're working on. Like let's just do like US west 2, I guess is what it wants to auto populate. So this you can alias the to reference like something specific. So like then alias equals west, right? And that's what the documentation. Let's see what else they say. Unique identifier for a specific provider configuration, letting you use multiple configurations for the same provider. Fair. I think that's cool, but like also, keep in mind, how often you can use variables for a lot of things too. So maybe we'll do a deeper dive in that in a different video. Cool. So alias is one, and where that goes. That goes in the provider block, right? So it goes within provider. Something. Okay. Cool. So alias goes in the. Let's go down to 2B. We already got the provider block reference for describe how Terraform uses providers. I think we already explained that a little bit. And then requirements. Got. If you were interested in reading this, I think it hurt understanding how Terraform works with the plugins specifically. Kind of gives you a little bit more background and understanding of how Terraform operates under the hood, if you will. So when you're thinking about Terraform, you want to think Terraform core is like the engine, and then the providers are kind of like the steering and what direction you're going to take the car. Providers don't really run anything. It's Terraform that's running it and making the calls, and the providers are like the navigational tool that interact with that infrastructure that's already existing. So run through this. I think it's kind of nice that they set up their site this way, that you can just kind of click through each exam topic and go over it. I do think that that's super helpful. Cool. And then multiple providers. Yep. So we talked about that. Requirements for that. And then state. So this is kind of popping into other categories a little bit, because if you go back to like my exam results, right, like state management is its own category. So something just to note there, right, like I don't want to go too deep into state now, especially if I do like another live stream on this, because I think that I want to make sure that you guys we're taking our time on each thing. Now I am gonna be making more tutorial videos that specifically cover each one of these and maybe string it all together so that you have kind of like one solid picture. But yeah, just be aware if there's more to this. But let's go ahead and see what they put here for like, what is this? This is still, we're in the fundamentals. So here, purpose of Terraform states. This is just purpose right now, which is fine. So as I showed you, we go back, when we did our Terraform init, we have the state file generated. And here, this is like all of our resources. So right now you can see I still have all my resources. My repository that I created is still here. And all of the metadata for those is populating. This is really two key factors within Terraform, is desired state and your current state. And you need to know the difference. So if you have infrastructure already in AWS, which I do, because we just did that, right? If I come back to instances, so my current state is I have an EC2 instance with no name. I should have put a tag on there, but there's no name. It's a T2 micro, and it is in that availability zone. It's got a public IP address. There's no elastic IP because we didn't create one, right, and assign it. And we have our, it should just be like a default security group on here. Networking, UCID, subnet. I'm just missing it. But anyways, security group is there somewhere. If I were to change something here on my infrastructure live in like AWS, let's say, for instance, stop this. Okay. Stopping. Now, once that's stopped, I can update this here to like a different size. So while it's waiting, and I'll show this like actually as a in live. But so that's our current state. Our current state is what's in the infrastructure, how it's sitting in AWS. When we look at desired state, that's what's going to be in your Terraform configuration files, right? So this is our desired state, the one that's existing currently. And so, for instance, right, like I'm about to go in there and change the instance type from T2 micro to probably just a T3 something, or a T2 medium or whatever. Once I do that, the current state is going to be different than my desired state. And this is a key detail in the exam, is understanding the difference of what will happen if I alter, like if maybe you'll get a scenario where like you have an infrastructure, and then what would happen if I did XYZ and ran Terraform apply. And you just kind of have to understand. So for instance, right, like if well, let's just see. I'll show you. Okay, so it is stopped. Okay, let's go to instance settings. Settings. Oh. Settings. Change type. Put this as a T2 medium. A T3 mic. Change. All right. So I'm updating currently the current state of my infrastructure. Once it, there it goes. So we have T3 micro, and we're now a pending state. It's coming up. Now, so remember, current state versus desired state. So my desired state, as in what we just created, my desired state is saying it should be a T2 micro. This is, so if I run an apply, this should, it should tell me, like, so like Terraform, we can plan if you, like, let's do a plan. So it's going to reach out, and again, provider is the binary, right? It's the intermediary. So Terraform core is reaching, we updated that. Yeah, because I didn't do Control Z enough. Okay. We do the plan again. Refreshing state. Okay, one to change. So here, it's wanting to do an update in place for our EC2 instance. Sees that it's a T3, and it's saying, hey, this does not match our desired state, T2 micro. And it wants to do an update on the instance to make it match our desired state. So, practical implication here, if you're working on a team and somebody does that, right? Maybe it's a small company like where I came from. When I was working with Terraform, it was a really small organization within a really big organization. It was a company that was bought by Fortune 500, but our specific team was actually pretty small. And the infrastructure we were working with, oftentimes we didn't have the discipline and practice in place to properly do version control, which is a whole nother story. And it was not uncommon for someone to just jump in there quickly because we had the access, and to update a resource really fast and be like, hey, I fixed the problem, or, customer is restored. But then the Terraform file didn't, and the state didn't get updated. And so, our, whenever on the next run of a Terraform run, then you're looking at messing something up here. So the plan is designed to, which is best practice. Again, you talk about Terraform fundamentals and things like that on the exam, and those, you take it for granted. Best practice is to write the Terraform code and check it into source, and then run a plan, review the plan, maybe even have someone else review the plan, and then and then run the apply. And so in this case, we're going to be going back to C2 micro, which is what I want. So we can just go ahead and do that. Auto approve. And boom, modifying. Go back. Stopping, hitting the type, like, got my Kylo Ren mug. I don't know if you can see that. Still modifying. Okay. So I'm putting our GitHub as well. Okay. So if I come back over, fresh, and we're back to our desired state. Cool. So understanding the difference between desired state and current state is key. We're talking about the exam specifically. Let's try like adding a tag. So update name and see, because this is actually kind of a test for me. This is not pre-planned. I'm actually kind of interested to see what this would do. So if I do a Terraform plan, I'm going to call out using the provider to AWS and one to change. So it wants to take our name of our instance back to null. So this is just another good example of like minor things that you don't really always think about that could really impact something. I mean, obviously changing the name tag is not going to be a big deal. But that's just something, right? It's because you've changed the current state to test 1, but the desired state is no tag at all. So, let's run it. Okay. That effect, probably pretty quick. Not really. There we go. Yep. Refresh and back to null. So, be aware. Current state versus desired state will impact you. Okay. See. Next up, let's go back to our I guess we maybe we need to talk a little bit more about this. Let's see. Yeah, the metadata talked about this in the TF state file. Yeah, so you know, again, what I just said, right, and demonstrated. Terraform must know the current state of resources in order to effectively determine the changes that it needs to make to reach your desired configuration. Desired configuration. Yeah. We'll talk more about remote state another time. That'll be a separate video on it in and of itself. Remote state, and then, you know, particularly with like AWS DynamoDB, locking that state for when you're working on a team. Because obviously, you know, what you just saw, right, is the state. I'm just one person. It's on my local, I'm updating it. But obviously, when you're working on a team, you're going to need to lock that down in case multiple people are working on the same configuration at the same time. need to lock that in version control so that you prevent changes from happening without really understanding it. Cool, and that's just at the start of state. So again, when we look at the exam and my results, state management is something completely different as a category than just knowing what state is, which is a part of the Terraform fundamentals, which again, wild, I feel like I didn't need review on that, but apparently I did. And I think that a lot of it came down to, syntax and things that I wouldn't really normally think about and take for granted. I mean, you just saw it too on the stream. You're just using the extension on VS Code to auto-fill those details. I think that could do you an injustice on the exam. Okay, so I've gone on for about an hour on Terraform fundamentals, that key piece. I'm going to be trying to do this more frequently when time permits, and going through each one of these segments a little more deeply. So, things to note here. Let's recap on state. What we can do is do an overall recap. Providers, binaries, they're maintained and managed by either HashiCorp itself or third-party integrations. You want to be careful about using the public ones just because of what you could be downloading onto your machine. I used GitHub, which was an integrations here. Let's go back to the file. I'll go back to my versions here. So you can notice that difference. Just to recap, right? We have the HashiCorp, which is the official slipping my mind. The official they're managing the AWS provider there. And then you have integrations, which is obviously that third-party GitHub integration into, and this is a widely trusted one, still reliable. But that's how I created that repository with Terraform. Was it just called out to the GitHub API. Now, like you may have seen on videos I've done in the past where I use the GitHub CLI. It's really no different, except all of this is managed in my configuration files. So, which again brings us back to the benefit of infrastructure as code. We have one place where we create our infrastructure and then one place where we update it. And we can work as a team to do that. It's human readable, fast, reliable, and it saves our state. So, and we can lock that. So, these are things that ultimately benefit. Now, where this is going is obviously automation. So when we talk about pipelines, talk about quickly enabling other teams to use our infrastructure. When we get to modules, that'll be fun because you're enabling development teams to interact with your modules and your infrastructure, and they can consume those things. So you can write it really super reliably, and then they can use that. And it's kind of like almost a plug and play situation where developers can use your infrastructure as needed. That makes you valuable. You can then write that code and spread that out to many people. So those are, things to keep in mind. Yeah. Now I'll close out finishing my ADD, finishing the recap. We talked about providers, binaries, solid GitHub integrations, state. You have your state file that gets generated when you run a plan, and then it updates when you do the applies. This, what we're looking at, is your desired state. Current state, your infrastructure as is in AWS. Okay. You saw earlier on the stream, we updated the T2 to a T3 manually, and we also updated the tag for the name manually. And when we ran our Terraform apply, it wanted to put those back to the desired state. So when we want to update something like the name, right? Rather than do it directly on the infrastructure, here you add tags. So for instance, here, so we just do, why not? Now, oh, okay. And then let's do a plan. We'll see that now it's taking the current state and it's saying, hey, I have something in my desired state that doesn't add up. Here's the change. Are we going to do an in-place update? Yes. So auto apply. And it's fresh. Voila. Cool. So that is pretty much the recap. I want to encourage you guys a couple things before I end the stream. One, this exam was actually pretty straightforward. Nothing too crazy. And I would encourage you to try to knock it out, especially like if you're in space. Two, the future. I think obviously there's a lot of hype around AI. There's a lot of worry, concern, confusion. You know, there's uncertainty about the future. And I am a firm believer that I think, you know, I don't know what the future is going to hold. And I don't really honestly care too much. I have a family. Obviously, I care to that regard and keeping them well and safe. The things to consider are that no matter what, like today's going to come and go, whether we're with it or not. Tomorrow's going to come and go, whether we're with it or not. I would just encourage, you know, anyone listening on my channel to go with it. Like, let's put in an effort and push to be better. I have been really bad about certifications in the past. I never prioritized it, and I got really complacent, especially at my last job. Granted, I was a senior manager, not engineering specifically, but I let complacency take over, and I didn't remain competitive. And so I want to encourage my audience, my friends, to push yourself. Even if you think that this is going to be irrelevant in 3 years, which it very well may be, I don't know. All I can tell you is right now, it's already becoming, you just saw me generate most of this file on auto-completion. And that's not even, I didn't even use Copilot, which we will do on future videos. But I could use Copilot to generate or Claude, right? To generate my files for me. You'll find that when you do that, you still need to understand what it's doing. And you still need to understand what it's saying. And you still need to understand your infrastructure. You need to understand the ask. But, you know, what's being asked of me. That's going to be for the next several years. So keep that in mind. Push yourself. I'm pushing myself. When we talk about, you know, going back to my site, I'm going to be tracking what I'm earning and sharing that with my audience. But I really, again, want to encourage everyone to try. Also, you know, I think that the AI certs, I'll let you know how those go. I'm going to be studying for those, data science in particular. And that one might take me a little bit longer, but I'm going to try. And I'm not just going to try, I'm going to do it. AI certifications coming. I'll let you know how those go. I'm going to continue doing streams on the Terraform stuff. We'll go through each one of those sections that I did poorly in. I didn't say poorly, but, you know, I need review. Just like we did today with fundamentals, we'll move on next time, probably either later this week or next week, and cover some more ground until we've kind of covered up the entire curriculum. And then yeah, and I'll keep doing these for all the certs I go to get. Again, remain competitive, work hard, see where you fit in. The harder you work, the more you earn. The more you can interact with AI and use AI, and the more that you can be someone who advocates for change. You need to adapt. I need to adapt. So learn this stuff, understand what it does, understand what it's doing. Allow AI to help you, just like I did on this. And in the future, I'll be using Copilot more to show you guys that. Embrace it, and everything's going to be okay. But then also not just embrace, but also push yourself to new limits. You need to expand your mind, change the way you think about things, and roll with it, because it's like I said, today, tomorrow, they're going to go on without us, whether we're there or not. And change is going to happen whether you're with it or not. If you don't adapt, you're not going to make it. So, at least in this career field. And so prepare. Do it now. That's why I'm on here streaming my experience with this exam in particular. I want to share what I am experiencing and maybe what my next steps are as well. I think, had a lot of time to think about this, and a lot of time to worry about being replaced by artificial intelligence. And yeah, gonna keep going, pushing. So yeah, if you want to track, like I said earlier in the stream when I started this whole thing, you can go to my website, and I'm gonna obviously my LinkedIn. If you guys want to go to find my LinkedIn, go up. I need to add my LinkedIn here, but you can find me on LinkedIn. Track my progress there. I'm going to be putting my certifications that I have here, of course, the non-expired ones. So these are what I just currently actively have. And I need to go get those ones that expired, be better about that. And I'll be tracking that here. And if you're interested to follow my progress, you can follow that here. I'm going to try to stream more and do more videos. So I'm going to give you updates on YouTube. And I'll be trying to get back to my blog and writing the blogs as well. I need to probably add one for the GitHub Actions page. Things like that. The future of this channel, I'll end on this note, the future of this channel is going to be DevOps related, particularly around AI integration into DevOps. So when we talk about deployments and understanding metrics, making ourselves as valuable as possible. So, if AI is going to take over, I at least want to use it and remain on the end of employment as long as I can. So we're going to be taking AI, plugging it into our deployments, plugging it into monitoring, and understanding how we can be valuable in setting that up for organizations, and to really know what we're talking about. I think that's going to be really cool, especially whenever you get like live deployment metrics, and those deployment metrics are real-time suggesting and troubleshooting issues that are going on. We at PwC, we had a lot with Kubernetes, a lot of deployment issues, some Cosmic DB issues within Azure. I think that utilizing AI tools for that is going to be awesome. And I look forward to learning about that as well. So come on over, check out the site, sign up. I've got the Discord. I just need to figure out how to make it work. And yeah, that's about it. Play a lot of chess. If you're interested, I got my chess here. You can find me and play. Check out my GitHub. It's all the older stuff that I did last several years. And more updates to come. It's been fun spending the last hour with you all. And look forward to next time as well. Be on the lookout. But next time, probably either later this week or next week, be covering the next section. Would be Terraform configuration, and that one might be pretty quick, so we might jump right into modules at that point. So do it. Cool. Think there's any need for a Q&A at this point. If anybody has anything still on? Cool. All right, well, I look forward to seeing you guys next time, and have a great rest of your week. Stay competitive, push yourself, and be the fullest version of yourself that you can be. All right, everyone. Have a great evening, morning, wherever you are, and day.